So I nerfed Lissandra.
Oh,
I got to do that one. So it was basically targeted of looking. It was a very high elo or pro play focused nerf, and every mid lane champion on 9-1 with a higher presence than Lissandra was significantly nerfed. Like previously, all of them, like Galio, Aatrox, everything that was above it. And then also just thinking of like, do you really want Lissandra in every game, especially when there's not a huge amount of counterplay and there's not like a huge amount of skill expression. So you want to hit Lissandra a little bit. And the two nerfs that I did, I ended up taking 40 damage at max rank off of the E. So that's like a few per level, but it's actually fairly rarely used for damage.
Yeah.
And then increase the mana cost of Q by 8 at max rank. So very gradual. So pretty small nerfs.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was that Lissandra's most of the time in pro play are either taking minion dematerializer or mana flow bans, so they're already speccing into mana a bit, but they're almost always able to go proto belt, and it doesn't feel like they're paying a very appropriate cost for doing proto belt since Lissandra succeeds or fails by like push and roaming, right? So slight mana cost, make it a little bit harder to put in roam, or you build Ludens so you're allowed to do it, and then the E is just like this really high damage. I feel like long range wave clear tool that people use it for, because if you rank it up, the cooldown will still be the same. And like little chips in those two areas hopefully make her like an acceptable presence and not just like the dominant mid laner. And if Aftershock gets nerfed, Lissandra gets buffed again for all those people that are worrying about it, because she's like super reliant on that keystone.
So Lissandra, Q cost increase late, E damage increase late, Ice Shard. So you're going to end up maxing this first, so you're missing... I guess we know what TSM's been practicing. All right. E, Glacial Path, 70 to 250 scaling, 70 to 210. Glacial Path's endpoint now shows through terrain, fog of war, and brush to enemies within 600 range of it. This has nothing to do with why Lissandra's oppressive. This has absolutely nothing to do with it. Have you seen this? They took 4 mana. So let me translate. He said that's not a Lissandra nerf. This is a joke. This is Zoe 0.25. Holy shit. Oh my god. 0.25. Jana 5 damage. Aurelia 5 MS. This isn't a nerf. This doesn't do anything. This does absolutely nothing. Oh, Twitch chat, help me. The Lissandra thing is a complete joke, because it basically just suggests that they don't know what is making her oppressive and strong. And to be honest, it's not necessarily just Lissandra in and of herself, and it's also not Aftershock. It's the fact that long-range mages are very bad right now, which is actually why Zoe is starting to come back. And if Zoe ends up getting hit again or something like that, what's going to end up happening in the next patch is... we're going to see an increase of utility-type mages or pokey-type mages. We're going to see Orianna come back into mid lane with high prevalence, and if we don't, then, I mean, people just don't know what they're doing. Zoe is going to end up coming back. Both of those champions are extremely good against Lissandra and offer a lot to team compositions, especially if the crit ADCs end up coming back. Orianna has a lot of potency inside of that. Orianna is also very good with Protect the X comps and whatnot. We might end up seeing, if all the stats keep getting hit, we might actually see champions like Karma and Lulu. I mean, we already did see her come back into mid lane. I do think that Lulu is quite terrible. But if all the crit ADCs return to power, then it might not matter that she's actually that terrible, because no champion in mid actually deals any damage. And this is one of the problems with mid lane right now. LeBlanc is inadvertently being affected by the way that the jungle is being changed and the way that the mid lane matchups are right now and the way that runes are and the loss of damage that she's had. She's being picked into matchups where she can find herself very good spots with better 2v1 or 2v2 potency, and if the enemy team is really vulnerable to her, but it doesn't change that mid lane's really weak. And when mid lane's really weak, champions like Syndra have the potential to actually return. Orianna often almost always comes back because she is basically a stat check for what is going on in this lane. This is also what you can often see down in bottom lane with Thresh, and you can also see this inside of the jungle with Lee Sin. These are champions, and especially even Sion. Sion started rearing his head again after top lane started getting more and more boring and more stale and stagnant. There are champions that basically exist in the game that, despite almost being continuously nerfed over the course of several patches over years or whatever, they basically speak to Rise as a manner of asking the lane, how competent is it right now from a balance perspective? And oftentimes, the lanes are really, really weak, and they're extremely fragile. And then what ends up happening is Riot continues to nerf champions over and over and over, and very rarely do those types of nerfs ever get undone. Here, I'm gonna give you guys a blast from the past. When is Quinn gonna be compensated now for all the changes that have happened to the itemization and the runes that were making Quinn good? Is Quinn just gonna be completely forgotten about because she was problematic due to things that never actually pertained to her? No, of course not. So Quinn is never going to see the light of day ever again. There is a ton of champions that will similarly be hit and completely forgotten about because what's making them good is not necessarily their own kit, but rather how the kit interacts with stuff inside of the meta and how their kit is being resisted by the certain meta. Lissandra isn't actually problematic. If you give Orianna a little bit more damage, you give Syndra some more damage, you give Zoe some more damage, you give, I don't know, you give Kassadin a little bit more damage, he's gonna fight. They're all going to put her in line in mid lane if you just give them a little bit more damage or if you actually change the runes. Now, suddenly, Aftershock Lissandra isn't looking like such a hot pick anymore in mid lane. And so it's not actually Lissandra and Aftershock that's problematic, but rather every fucking champion in mid sucks dick right now. So there's very few answers that can actually do anything against the oppressiveness that is walking up to you, pressing W and getting this massive stat boost that doesn't allow you to trade against it, and this point and click ability that just isolates a target or lets you get out of jail free. So because every champion sucks, that's why Lissandra's good.